So now we're going to hear a dynamic conversation from one of our signature partners. But before we do, I'd like to direct your attention to the screen. So when we think about energy companies, I bet we don't often think about women or Black women leading. But look, we all have cell phones, we all have homes that are run by power, we are all connected, right? But what we don't see is that Black women leadership. So powered by Entergy, we are going to have a conversation about women leading the future of the utility industry. So I'd love to welcome up Colette Honorable, the Chief Legal Officer, Compliance and Corporate Secretary, Exelon. John Hudson, who is the Chief External Affairs Officer at Entergy. And Nicole Daggs, who is the Executive Vice President, Human Resources and Corporate Services, NextEra Energy.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good. Lively crowd. I think that's great. I have the wonderful privilege of talking to two dynamic leaders in the energy business today. And I want to keep the conversation lively because when you think about electricity, you think about utilities, you don't really think about a lot of interesting and dynamic things. You think about having to pay your power bill, I think, most of the time.
The light bill, as my mama would say.
That's right. And so I want to first take a moment just for you guys to talk about yourselves. I am with Entergy. I'm the Chief External Affairs Officer. I am also the president of the Entergy Charitable Foundation and the chairman of the Entergy Community Development Corporation. And so beyond just serving electricity, we all believe, all of us believe, our companies have a responsibility to the communities we serve, and we do that very well. So we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But Nicole, let's start with you. Let's talk about you and your journey and how you got to the position that you're in today.
Well, thanks for having me. Super excited to be here on the panel with both you and Colette. So I'm a lawyer by training, and that's how I got into the energy space, was really supporting energy transactions, so selling power, natural gas. I was a deal lawyer, and so that was my entree into energy, and it was kind of by accident, actually. I thought that I was going to do telecommunications work, and the first day that I showed up at my law firm after graduation, there were rolling blackouts in California. And so they put every associate that they had on energy. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was a happenstance, but it exposed me to an incredible career in energy. So I practiced law and energy for probably a decade, and then I moved to the business side, where I had P&L responsibility over renewable assets at our company, generally in the Midwest, as well as our international assets that we had in Canada and Spain. So learned a lot about sort of management and operations that way pretty quickly. And then I got tapped to move to HR. And I'm sure that that makes complete sense to everyone. So at our company, we really believe a lot in moving talent around. And so I was another opportunity, another example of moving people around. So I moved to Florida Power and Light, which is our electric utility in Florida, where we serve about half the state. And so I ran HR for FPL for about 6 or 7 years before getting the opportunity to be promoted into the role that I'm in today, which is running HR and corporate services for our entire company.
Fantastic. Now, the other thing, you work at a company, NextEra, which is the largest by market cap in our company, in the United States. That is a huge company. You are in the C-suite. When you pull up the website and you look at those faces, there are not many faces of color, only you and another person there. And I think it's incredible that you've reached that objective at this stage in your life and in your career. And we'll come back to it. You're already the largest, but a merger was just announced,
Yep.
and so that is a big, and you're a deal person. So I know you have some perspective on that. So I'm going to come back to that. I want you to be thinking about that.
Perfect.
Now, the Honorable, Colette Honorable, right? You work for the largest company by customer.
Yes.
And that is a very, very big deal. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about yourself, but I do want to make sure that everyone in the room knows that you are a former FERC commissioner. You were appointed by the President of the United States to do that. You are a lawyer as well.
Yes.
And when we talk about people who are accomplished in our industry, this is really the case for women and men, people of color and non-people of color, to attain the level that you have in our industry. So I want to just put that out there before you start talking about yourself.
Thank you. I don't think I can say another word after that. But let me say how wonderful it is to be here at the Global Black Economic Forum. Thank you, Entergy, great partners. Nicole, great to be with you once again. First of all, John paved the way for both of us to be sitting on this stage, and that's important to state. I am a lawyer by trade. I hail from the great state of Arkansas, hence my southern drawl, this beautiful accent that I have. I worked as a lawyer and did litigation. One day, the Attorney General became governor. He asked me to take a stint in workforce, and then he asked me to go over to the Arkansas Public Service Commission. Within 2 weeks, I almost called him to say, I made a mistake. This is boring. When I got there, on my desk, there was a book that said, how electricity is created. I thought I died a little inside. But then I thought, you know what, I'm not a quitter. I'm going to do this job for a year, and then if I don't like it, I'll tell the governor. But then a light clicked on, pun intended, and I fell in love with it and went on to serve as chair of the commission, president of the National Association of Utility Commissioners. And that's when I met John, and his peers regulated Entergy. So it's really wonderful that we are all so friendly today. I was their regulator back in the day. And then I have to say which president tapped me for the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. I served in the second administration of President Barack Obama. Such an honor to do. And from there went to work at a firm for 6 years, supporting large kind of bet the business projects, helping them get across the line and supporting clean energy integration. When my largest client, Exelon, asked me to come in-house. Calvin Butler is our CEO. If you don't know him, he's incredible, one of 8 African-American CEOs in the Fortune 500. We're a Fortune 200 company. He recruited me for a year because I didn't have sense enough to go take that job right away. I thought, I love what I'm doing. And then he said, I'm going to make you an offer you won't be able to refuse. And he did, and I left that job. He did, thank you. I was on the board of Southern Company at the time. We had just elected a new CEO, African-American also, Chris Womack. If you don't know him, he's something else. And then I departed. My work there was done. I started like a role like John's Chief External Affairs Officer. And then a year and a half ago was named as Chief Legal Officer. So I'm a named executive officer of this 11 million customer company. We have 20,000 employees. I oversee federal affairs and strategy for legislative and regulatory, of course, legal claims, compliance, ethics, and corporate giving. So it's a beast of a job. I love it every day, and it's an honor to do this work in our footprint.
Fantastic. Man, you named a lot of
It's too much.
CEOs, though, before that.
Oh,
Two
yes.
African American
Absolutely.
CEOs. I'm
It's
looking
a
at
dream. It's a
looking
dream.
at you guys on the stage. What's going on in this boring industry with all these African Americans?
It's so hot. It's so
excelling,
sexy.
Not boring. Yeah, not boring.
So why do you think that has happened? I mean, you look across at other industries, they don't have the same story. What are your thoughts about that? How do you think this is occurring, right now at this time in our country's history?
Yeah, I think right now energy is in the spotlight for everything. I think all of us are talking about AI and manufacturing and onshoring, re-onshoring. We're excited about the growth that's happening, and I think we all finally realize that you can't do any of it without energy. So I think in some ways energy is becoming cool right now. And I hope that certainly as the person at my company who's in charge of people, I want it to be attractive to the next generation and to others who are looking for opportunities to grow, because that's what our space is all about right now. It's just growth. So there's no better time for folks to really turn to and learn more about what we do.
I agree, Nicole. I would add to that, you all have heard the saying, what makes the world go round? What is it that makes the world? Money. But au contraire, it's actually energy. Our sector is 5% of the GDP, but we fuel the remaining 95%. So nothing is happening without us, and that's the truth. You can't make your widgets at your company. You can't drive to work. You couldn't fly here. By the way, if you could see this room from this vantage point, it's super hot seeing y'all looking in these different colors and shades on these beautiful couches. Nothing is going to happen if we aren't at the center of it. And we know the role that we play. Entergy does it well. We do too. So does all of our friends. So do all of our friends at NextEra and FPL. And as John said, they're trying to take over the world right now.
One day at a time.
That's right. We're at the center of economic development. We are the partners that help make the dreams come true. And we are the people that are in our communities to help improve the quality of life. We at Exelon support almost 11 million customers in some of the largest, most urban areas, DC, Chicago, Baltimore, Philly, and a lot of places in between. This is where it's at, and we will always be a part of what is growing and what's improving in our communities.
Man, let's talk about data centers. We hear so much about AI. We know how AI is changing a lot of our businesses, the way that we live. But what allows that to happen are the data centers. And people don't feel good about data centers. It is just not beautiful, coverage in the media these days. And behind those data centers is the energy. They are huge consumers of power. And all of us are serving these data centers. We just announced a data center about a year ago in Richland Parish that ultimately, when it gets built out, will be almost the size of Manhattan. These are huge, huge physical structures, but they consume a lot of energy, and they are developing a reputation that I think is unfair, but the reputation is still there. And so talk a little bit, Nicole, about your thoughts on data centers and your company's thoughts and how you're dealing with some of the negativity around them.
So I think when you said data center, I heard some moaning in the audience. And so I think that you're spot on that, a lot of us aren't sure what to make about the consequences of data centers coming into our communities. At NextEra, we've been very focused on making sure that we keep the customers at the center of everything that we do, because ultimately, we have a duty to serve. But we also have a duty to make sure that we are serving reliably, but also ensuring that our customers have the ability to pay their bills, that we're affordable. You have to pay your light bill. It's a a service that you have to have. Everybody needs lights. And so we need to make sure that we are providing a low-cost, reliable product that all of our customers can enjoy. So when we think about data centers, you know, our point of view is that everybody should pay their own way, that our customers should not be subsidizing data centers. And so in Florida, we actually got a large load tariff passed, which basically means that data centers and other large customers will have to pay their own way, so that our residential customers do not have to take care of adding them to the grid or finding new sources of power and subsidizing these large-scale customers. And I think that really goes to our corporate values. We think that, you know, again, our customers need to make sure that they're able to do what they need to do and take care of their families and take care of their pocketbooks. And this is a key way where we can make sure that they can continue to do that.
I couldn't agree more, Nicole. And when we came to this issue, we have to really take stock of where we are in our history, because this is an unprecedented time in our nation where we haven't had such tremendous load growth. Honestly, I've been in this business 25 years. Most of the time, load growth, meaning how much more energy we need to meet the capacity or the energy needs that exist, has been really flat. Unless you were in Texas, maybe Florida, maybe some parts in the upper northern middle part of the country, load growth was very flat. So now that's turned on its head. In one of our states, in Illinois, ComEd is the fourth largest utility in the nation with 4 million customers. The load growth that they are seeing is astronomical. The need over the next 10 years could be almost 20 gigawatts of power. That's equivalent to about 20 nuclear units or 20 power plants. It's unheard of. We immediately began, you know, there's a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. Because of those populations that I spoke about, we aren't California or places with these very large outsized per capita incomes. We had to approach this with the view of what is best for our customer. In fact, when we talked about our innovation that has now been adopted nationwide, the first question that our CEO, Calvin Butler, asked is this the best thing for our customers? We, too, approach this by saying, you have to pay your own way, data centers. This scientific innovation, it's here. We're already using it. We're working to make sure, as I understand you've heard from some of the earlier sessions, that it's done equitably. But the work is going to be here, and we need for it to be here from a national security perspective. We don't want that capability housed in China, for instance. But as we've moved forward at Exelon, we require data centers and other large load customers in our footprint to execute what is called a transmission security agreement. This means if they back away from the project at any time, certain intervals in the project development, they pay X amount. We do not plan for any of our customers, small residential customers, small businesses, low-income customers, senior citizens, to be left holding the bag. We started that throughout our jurisdictions, and just in June, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission adopted this construct for all agreements throughout the nation. We, too, have put forward tariffs, which is the piece of paper that says the utility can charge the cost just for large loads, both at the national level and then also at the retail level, which is at your state level. So we are working every day to make sure we meet this moment. It's an exciting time, but we have to protect our customers in the least of these.
No doubt. You know, I think all of us, all the utilities are having to figure this out. Those
you
costs,
guys are doing it well.
Yeah,
We're watching you.
Yeah, well, we have something called Fair Share Plus.
That's right.
Right, so it's everything that you guys said, but there's a second requirement, which, you know, the utilities, whether it's Meta or Google or AWS, you need to make some contributions in the community.
Absolutely.
In addition to paying your fair
Absolutely.
share.
I love
What
that.
are you doing for the least of these? And they are stepping up.
Yes.
They are stepping up and making those contributions. So I think all of us are thinking through that.
Yes.
Both of you touched on a big issue, affordability. One of the things that we're all concerned about, and it's become a campaign issue leading into the
Absolutely.
November elections, everybody's talking about affordability. Everybody thinks that these data centers are driving up electricity prices, and so how are you guys thinking through affordability? Even if it's not data centers, the price of everything, including electricity, is going up.
Yes.
And so how are you guys thinking about that in terms of the jurisdictions that you serve?
John, this is our most challenging issue today. And to be clear, policymakers and politicians have talked about affordability, heck, for the longest. I remember being a little girl and one of the presidential hopefuls didn't know how much milk costs or bread or eggs, one of them. Y'all remember that, those who are as old as I am. This is real for our customers. It's real especially in the footprint in which we operate because we have a shortage of supply. You've heard me talk about capacity. So at the same time that the load or the need is ramping up, we don't have the generation to meet it. We call that supply. And the regional construct that plans for that is able to require that more be built. So we are really focused on, one, educating our customers on what is included in your bill. If you took a typical dollar, our costs at Exelon, so whether you're Pepco, ComEd, PECO, BGE, Baltimore Gas Electric, the oldest gas utility in the nation, our cost is actually about $0.25. Supply is 60% of that, and that has gone up dramatically. The rest would be comprised of surcharges and taxes and energy policy. That is real for our customers. I remember my father-in-law saying to me, if y'all raise my rates one more time, I'm coming down there on your job. That's how pissed people are today. We are too. We are as frustrated. And we are focused on driving policy that changes this dynamic. We also are willing to build. Today we're a transmission and distribution company. We move the power and the gas where it needs to go. We're willing to get back into the generation game because we know having more supply will bring the cost down for our customers. Affordability is the top challenge for our customers, and we're going to continue to see it until we fix that issue in the mid-Atlantic and northeast portion of the country.
So totally agree with what you said in terms of policy, and that has to be one of the angles that we pursue. Another angle that we focus on is really innovation and how we drive costs out of the business to make sure that we are keeping that bill as low as possible. So for FPL, one of the hallmarks of our company is Six Sigma and looking for opportunities to drive process improvements. And we really push that across our employee base. And so we've got O&M, which is the operation and maintenance costs that flow into our bill, that's 70% below the national average. So we aim to be better than everybody else, but we also mostly aim to just beat ourselves on a daily basis. So when we think about innovation, we think about things like, how do we predict outages? If we can predict outages, we can get ahead of it and probably minimize the cost and the inconvenience to our customers, but mostly address the cost factor. So policy certainly a key way to continue to think about addressing affordability, but we're also thinking about it from an innovation standpoint and how do we just take costs out of the business.
That's so good. If you don't mind me saying, I love that you mentioned innovation. Just a couple of weeks ago, we had our Innovation Expo at Exelon, where we highlighted the things that our colleagues are doing. Any one of our 20,000 colleagues can develop things that help keep them safe, things that help us get better about reliability. By the way, in our companies, Our reliability is benchmarked against our peers is 1, 2, 4, and 7. So we get that right. What we're still working on is innovation. We are endeavoring to leverage AI, something we've been talking about today, to identify using machine learning what a healthy transmission tower looks like, what a healthy transformer looks like, so that we can identify, to Nicole's point, what we need to do before the outage occurs. It saves on trip rolls, it saves on sending out a truck with our field crews, it saves our customers money. We also, and I think most healthy corporations are focused on reinventing themselves and reimagining what the delivery of services to our customers looks like, more importantly, how we partner with them. Through the end of this year, we will have driven $3 billion out of our business. That's important for us to do. As we talk about affordability and why it's critical that we focus on it, we have to focus on doing our job better and more efficiently. And now we're in the middle of what we call Exelon 2.0, where we're looking at centralizing functions and things across our footprint. I love that you mention innovation because it's such a critical component.
Yeah, so I love it too. Policy and innovation, and I know both of your companies are focused on corporate philanthropy. And all the programs and initiatives that I've seen announced from both of your companies, I know that happens. But, you know, we've been talking about a bunch of technical issues. Let's talk about some interesting things that may have happened across your career. I mean, you guys have landed in some wonderful places. But it couldn't have just been easy. I mean, it couldn't have been easy for you to get to this space. You had to have, you know, faced some opposition or challenges in order to get there. And so I'd love for you to talk about, you know, maybe one or two things that you faced to get to this really elevated position in the industry and at your companies.
I can't wait to hear what Colette's going to say. You know, I think as I reflect on my career, taking chances, there aren't a lot of people who look like us in big jobs as I was moving up through my company or just through the energy industry. But when I did see those faces, they were encouraging. And, you know, one thing that was important to me was taking chances, being able to take chances. And I think part of the way that you're able to take chances is that you are building a reputation for yourself, that you already deliver a good product or you have a reputation for some sort of expertise. And so as I have been sort of working at that as a lawyer, that sort of opened the door for me to do other things. And so that was something that was really important as I was moving through the energy space, was creating a reputation and building a network, meeting other folks who were doing things that were inspiring, like Colette, and looking for opportunities to stretch myself and do something different. So I always felt like if I failed at the business side of it, I could go back and be a lawyer. So having a plan B and a plan C is always helpful. So I always encourage people to think about it that way. Everybody's good at something, so making sure you know what you're good at and being able to define that and talk about that and then create the space for yourself to learn something more. What else is it that you want to do? Being able to define that, I think, is just really important.
I couldn't agree more, Nicole. I don't know how to follow that. I couldn't agree more with challenging yourself. There have been several times in my career where I thought, I'm going to take this leap of faith and try something new and different. And along the way, although I'm who I have always been at my core, you know, this Southern belle, that's still in there. But now I'm a beast sitting at the top of a corporation. And that is, thank you. I never saw that for myself. And let me be honest with you, I've never been courageous enough to try it. So in these roles that we've talked about as we shared our journeys, you heard me say, somebody asked me to do this, I never said, I can do that. I'm gonna go get that job. But that's what I encourage you to do. I didn't know that I could help oversee the nation's grid. I've been on stages all over the world. I didn't know I had that in me. And then when Calvin pursued me about, I shouldn't say pursued, he would be like, what? When he asked me to consider coming to the company, I also thought, no, I never envisioned myself doing that. But why didn't I? That's why I want to ask you to challenge yourself. Why haven't you challenged yourself? So at my first performance evaluation, you know, you go in there and you talk about you the best thing they ever had. I told him, I can do this job. He said, I know you can. I said, I know I can, because I'm doing it. And I'm doing it better than it's ever been done. And we've never had a black woman in our C-suite, which you all know we need to quit having first. It's 2026. What is happening? But if you are going to do it to the fullest so that someone can come after you. John has done it. Look at John sitting in the C-suite doing it. And look at Nicole. But we have this responsibility, and we all mentor and sponsor, because we want people to see themselves. We're not going to be the last. And I want the next person. We have an intern in our office. Her name is Bailey Wilson. She's just adorable. She's a rising sophomore at the University of Tampa. I want her to think, I'm going to be the CEO. I want her to hope for something beyond what I'm doing today. And so I agree with Nicole. We have to push ourselves, be comfortable being uncomfortable, and say yes. Or better yet, put your hand up to say, I can do that. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So we've got a few moments. Global Black Economic Forum. We are in an industry where billions of dollars are being spent. We just talked about data center, and if you think about the amount of money that's going to be spent to build these things, to provide electricity to these things, you know, and really just all the large load, you know, that's out there, this is going to create huge opportunity all across the supply chain. And so my question to you in the last just quick few moments, because we are talking about economics, what should people who are interested in this industry, where should they be focused? What should they be focused on to try to capture some of that?
Everything, all of it. And what I mean by that is when you think about the energy industry, I think a lot of people might think line workers and engineers. Right. But Colette mentioned earlier, right, you know, her company, these are Fortune 200, Fortune 100 companies. That means that they have every discipline. So if you are an accountant, if you are a nuclear physicist, if you are a project manager, there is an opportunity for you to support the energy industry. And so I think if there's one thing that people leave with, it should be that there is opportunity around the entire value chain, as you mentioned, for anyone who has a desire to be a part of it. So I think that's really important. The other thing that I would mention, you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, you know, I think there's this myth that AI is not going to be helpful to us. AI is something that we should be fearful of. And I think what we've seen at our company is really just the opposite. That when we give people an opportunity to experiment, to pilot, that people are using AI as their superpower. And so using AI, whether it's to look for a job, to think about an opportunity, to come up with a business idea, I think that our community in particular needs to embrace it and make sure that we are on top of it, because we can use it to really elevate ourselves and make sure that we're getting all of those opportunities that we are seeking. So we ought not be left behind. We need to make sure that we're really using it as our superpower. But I think when we think about the energy industry, my take is make sure that you're considering all that there is, and we cover the full gamut of opportunities.
Very well said, Nicole. I often say, anything you can do anywhere, you can do in the energy sector. Anything. And we need more workers in the future, more leaders in the future. We do need more engineers and people who are in finance, but we also need folks who are focused on policy, innovators and creators. We need a lot of that as our sector, which is well over 100 years old, is working and moving to meet this moment. We need young minds, we need creative minds. Most of all, we need people who hustle hard. I've never worked harder in my life, I'm gonna tell you right now. And this job requires a lot. It requires you to bring your whole self to the table, all of it, my braids, all of that. I have to bring all of it to the table to bear because we have a lot of challenges right now, but we have even more opportunity. And when you are in the room, magic happens. So I hope that you will consider Entergy. It's been a life changer for me, for my family, for my community. And we are honored to partner strongly, whether it's through our customer relief fund. We give out $60 million. I mentioned to John, we were the first utility to become part of the $1 billion roundtable. We've clipped $3 billion now, and this work is very real. The opportunity is real, and so are the benefits.
Thank you for that. And there's a lot of business opportunity.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is, it is critical.
We build leaders and businesses. I know we're over time.
Yeah, we are.
But we went, look, I'm gonna keep going like I didn't hear that. There's a man in Philadelphia, William Bowie. He started out as a contractor. He told us he wanted to create his own business. Today he has his own business. If his business is valued at $23 million, 21 of that he gets from us. We are building leaders. We are building economic engines in our communities. So it's really powerful.
Yes. So we're going to wrap.
Okay, I'll quit talking now.
We're going to wrap. I just want to leave you. If you see and hear about all of these billions of dollars being spent, come get some of that. Come get some of that if you can. And so we'll be around, and just come up and talk to us about it, if you have an opportunity.
John, you're amazing.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank these
Thanks, Colette.
wonderful, wonderful ladies. We appreciate your time. Thank you.